Welcome to Everyday Linux User. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing which is the best Linux distribution for new users. Now, if you've been following on my channel for the last 6 months, you will know that I've been reviewing the top 10 Linux distributions as they are based on DistroWatch. So I'm going to take you to the DistroWatch page to show you what I'm on about. You can go to distrowatch.org or distrowatch.com, it's the same site. And so I've been reviewing all these distributions down here. And for each one, I've been saying how suitable it is for your ordinary computer user and new users to Linux. Today, I want to discuss which is the best distribution for new users to Linux. Out of this 10 and the other ones that I've done, including Elementary, etc., which ones would I honestly recommend to new users? Not which ones are the best necessarily, but which ones are good for new users to Linux. And why am I doing this? I belong to a Linux fans group on Facebook, and these are the posts that you see quite often. So, what Linux distro do you believe is better for a guy that wants to leave Windows and start with Linux? And then you get the distribution flame wars of, this is the one you should use, this is the one you should use. And you hear stupid things like people say Gentoo or Arch. And I don't think Arch is the best one to be starting with. Here we go. I'm currently planning to switch from macOS to Linux. The main issue that I don't have any friends to impress, especially since I'll be switching to Arch. Not sure what that one's about. Here we go. Want a Linux distro that is a complete replacement for Windows and is user friendly. So you get the idea that there's lots of people asking the same question over and over again on Facebook, on Quora, on various different channels, different social media groups, which is the best Linux distribution for new users. So I am going to tell you the one that I believe it is, and actually I've got two that I'm going to say today, and I'll describe them both differently. This isn't a review of that particular distribution, I already have a review. So the one, you can already see what I'm going to recommend, it's Linux Mint. But here's my reasons for Linux Mint. It's worth pointing out, support is one of those reasons. And you'll see by my own channel alone, I've already created a number of videos about Linux Mint. So I've got a review about Linux Mint, and that's 17 minutes long, and I tell you everything you need to know about Linux Mint. I've got a video, is it any good for software development? Yes, it is. And this will show you some of the tools you can use, how to install Linux Mint, how to create a bootable drive, how to fix Wi-Fi issues if you have them. Most people won't. How to get Xbox controllers work, and how to run PokerStars. And I'm not the only one that's making these videos. I'm not the only one that's providing support for Linux Mint. There's thousands of people doing it. So Linux Mint is good for new users, if nothing else, is because you can get good support. It's a popular distribution. Now, some people will be wondering, why Linux Mint? Why not Ubuntu? Ubuntu is the base for Linux Mint, so Linux Mint's built on top of Ubuntu, unless you go for the Debian edition, which is built on top of a Debian. So why wouldn't I say Ubuntu or Debian? Well, Debian's simple. Debian isn't as straightforward to use as Linux Mint. Linux Mint, for new users, you're going to install it, it's going to work, and you're going to get the learning curve for Linux Mint is a lot shallower than it is for any other Linux distribution. And the reason Linux Mint over Ubuntu, Ubuntu changes a lot over the years. So Ubuntu is obviously older, and it's gone through so many different iterations since it became a thing. It started off with the GNOME desktop, and it had the original GNOME desktop, which at the time was really, really easy to use. Then it introduced Unity as a desktop environment. It started working towards a Ubuntu phone sort of thing. It introduced an Amazon sort of integration. It introduced it was going to have a different desktop display driver called Mur, but it ended up moving to Wayland. It's recently introduced Snap packaging, is integrated into Windows as part of the Windows subsystem for Linux. So the thing about Ubuntu over Linux Mint is that it's constantly changing and not evolving so much as sometimes it's a complete revolution. And sometimes things don't work as out of the box as well with Ubuntu as they do with Linux Mint. That's not to say you can't get Ubuntu up and running and working, but I don't think it's as straightforward as Linux Mint. And Linux Mint, it's consistent. It's always been consistent. It started off with this panel at the bottom. It started off with this menu system the way it is. These icons down the bottom right, the way they've always been. How to install software has largely stayed the same. How to use any part of the system has remained incredibly consistent since its initial release. And for that reason, I think Linux Mint is a far better system to be trying to get used to than any other distribution, because it doesn't matter whether you start today or in a year's time or the year after that. The tutorials and user guides are virtually going to be the same from the installation through to the usage. You're not going to have to be learning a new desktop environment. You're not going to have to be learning loads of new stuff each time. And that, for that reason, it's a lot easier to get used to. So I'm going to show a few features for new users. This isn't a review, as I say. So you had that welcome screen that you saw there, but you have this menu. And if you come from a Windows background and you're an older user that's used to Windows having this start button in the bottom left hand corner, then instantly recognisable. The menu system, very easy to use, and you can see this is performing very well indeed. And this is a mini PC I'm using, so it's not like I'm using a high-end powerful gaming PC. This is just a mini PC. Yes, it's got an SSD in it. It's also running off 12 gigabytes of RAM, but I've got one that's running off 4 gigabytes of RAM, and it still performs well. It comes with a decent set of software to start with. So you've got a web browser, you've got a mail client, you've got this thing called Web Apps, which I'll show you shortly. You've got an Office suite, LibreOffice. You've got audio applications, Rhythmbox. Kdenlive isn't installed by default, by the way. I've installed that. You've got a video player called Celluloid, administration tools, etc. Don't like the look of the desktop? You don't like that wallpaper? Okay, right click, change desktop background. It's the same as it is for Windows, and you can just pick any one of these wallpapers. Don't like those wallpapers? Got one of your own? Click the plus symbol, go down to where your pictures are, and then you can choose that folder, and then you can choose the picture that you want as your desktop background. There it is, it's done, changed. Want to revert back? Go to the Linux Mint, and then you can choose any one of these wallpapers. As so. You want to listen to music? Like I said before, I've got Rhythmbox here. Now I've only put one song on my thing, it's for copyright purposes. Now I've installed a Bluetooth speaker. I haven't had to do any work to this. There. All you have to do is click search. It finds the thing, you double click it, it's connected. So I can play this through that speaker. And hopefully you can see that worked. So you've seen how easy it was to set up a Bluetooth speaker there. I'm connected via a wired network, so an Ethernet cable. But if I go down here, all my Wi-Fi's are available, all the wireless connections are there. I can click on any one of these, type in my Wi-Fi, I'm on the internet. printers. I haven't done anything to this machine. I haven't installed a single piece of hardware. But my printer's been picked up. It was installed straight away. No hassles whatsoever. It's there. I can print to that printer. It works. It's a wireless printer. It just works. So if you're a new user to Linux and you install Linux and everything works straight away, compared with another distribution where you might have to do a little bit of work, then obviously this is the best solution for a new user. So you've seen the software that's installed. You don't like that software? Well, you go to the software manager. What are we missing? Don't like Firefox? Maybe you want Chrome. And there it is. All I've got to do is click install. And Chrome is now going to install in the background. You saw earlier, under here, this concept of web apps. So here's my YouTube channel. Click plus, we're going to say YouTube. And you can choose the browser you're going to use. I'm going to say Firefox because Chrome's still installed in the background. And then you just click OK, like that. Now I can launch it from here, but I can also go to the menu, go to the web section, and there's YouTube. And it loads YouTube as if it's a desktop application. But you see, I'm now on YouTube. I can watch any one of these videos, and this is now like a native desktop app. So Chrome's now installed. I can launch it from here. I can also launch it from here. Let's look at Office 365. And here's all your apps. So the clever thing to do here would be to take this, you go into the internet, go to your web apps, click add, Office 365, that into there, and we're going to open it with Chrome, and we'll click OK. So we'll close all that down now, and go into web, Office 365, and there we are. I can start using Office 365 online, and I've got most of the features of a lot of the common features of Word, a lot of the common features of Excel. Okay, it's not the full package of Word, but for most home users it's fine. You're going to be able to create documents that are in the same format that other people like. You're going to be able to create spreadsheets, PowerPoint presentations, etc. So that's Office 365 there. And so all in all, that's a whirlwind tour of Linux Mint. This isn't a review of Linux Mint. This is why I think Linux Mint is the best distribution for new users. If you're a new user to Linux, ignore anyone that suggests Arch, ignore anyone that says Gentoo, ignore anyone that says Slackware, ignore anyone that says Debian, Fedora, OpenSUSE. You're going to hit problems, and the people that support these things, they will try their best. There's some people that are really good at explaining these things, but Linux Mint will work for more people more of the time, and it's a lot easier to get your head around. So for that reason, Linux Mint is my number one choice. Now I'm going to move on to the second choice, in case Linux Mint isn't to your taste. So my second choice of distribution is Pop! OS. Pop! OS is one I've recently come across in the past year. It's made by System 76, and it's a really good, easy to use distribution. I would definitely go Linux Mint as my first choice if I was a new user. Linux Mint has been around longer, it's consistent, it's For all the reasons I said previously, it's the easiest to get used to. But if you want to try something different that's just as easy to use, easy to install, then Pop! OS would be it. I would say that Linux Mint is slightly easier to install, especially if you're wanting to dual boot, but Pop! OS is a good choice as well. So when you first boot in, again, this isn't a review of Pop! OS, you can get one of those off my channel. But the welcome screen says, do you want a dock? How do you want it to display? So you can either have no dock at all, the dock this bit at the bottom, you can have extends to edges, so this is a big block here, or you can have dock doesn't extend to edges, and then you can see it just takes up this little space here, and that's my preferred choice. And then you can choose whether to show the workspaces button and the applications button, and where the time is displayed. And then you can choose what the super key is, what's your Windows key, or if you're on a Mac, it's a command key. It's the magic key, basically super key, and you can determine what that actually starts. And then you can do gesture navigation as well. And then you can have light or dark mode. So this is the dark mode. I'm going to switch to light mode. And then you can choose whether to connect to the Wi-Fi or not. You can also do that up here. I'm going to skip that, I'm using a wired connection. And then you can choose whether location servers are on, and that's good for things like maps and weather and things like that. And then you can choose your time zone. I'm in the UK, so I'm going to just choose Isle of Man. It's London I want, there we go. And then you can connect to online accounts, and that is good for things like email, etc. And so I'm going to skip that, and then we're all done. So we can start using Pop! OS. Right, so if Linux Mint is easy to use, then Pop! OS has to try and be as easy to use for it to be one of my top 2. So if I come up here, I've got my Bluetooth speaker connected, and that was as simple as going into the Bluetooth settings, finding it, and turning it on and off. So it was just as easy as Linux Mint. Printers. Type the word printers there. OfficeJet's ready to go. I didn't have to do anything. It's already there. Wi-Fi, you've seen it picked up all my Wi-Fi drivers as we were doing the setup there, so that works. So as with Linux Mint, hardware, we're in a good place. Software, we can either use this applications thing up here, which is a nice little block here, or we can just click this button and that does the same thing. And the thing I like about Pop! OS is this menu system, the way this pops out at you. So you've got these categories down the bottom. So under Office, we've got LibreOffice. Under System, you've got these system tools, and then under Utilities, you've got these tools. One thing I would say about Pop! OS compared with Linux Mint is you get slightly more stuff installed with Linux Mint. And that's a preference thing. Maybe you want to choose your own stuff. So you've got a web browser, you've got the Office suite. There doesn't appear to be a video player. Oh, there is a video player there. But audio packages, there's not one of those installed by default. So the next thing that you'll want to know is how easy is it to install software. So that's where the Pop! Shop comes in. It's a lot like Linux Mint Store. I search for something. And you can see I've got a choice here, and I've got 2 options. This one is 976 megabytes, and we've got this one is smaller, 17 meg. So it's the difference between the smaller package, which is like a Debian package, or the Flatpak, which is a larger in size. Now for new users, what that means is a Flatpak, it's containerized, so it takes all the dependencies that application needs, wraps it up into one big package. You install it, it takes up more disk space, but you're guaranteed it's going to work. It's not going to have any sort of like dependency issues later on down the road. So whereas if you choose the smaller package, then it obviously takes up less disk space, but later on down the road, if libraries get mixed up, then it could stop working. I'll be honest with you, I could count on one hand, maybe just into two hands there, how many times this has happened in my life. It doesn't happen very often. You can get away with installing a smaller one. It's just flat packs have become a new big thing because they make things work. So I'm going to install the smaller of the rhythm boxes here, and you can see it's just as easy as clicking the install button, and that will now install in the background. And that's as easy as that, and I can open it there, and you should see it should appear in my list of applications here. There it is. Now down here I could create a multimedia section, and I can drag that into there, and I could go into my utilities where the videos were, and I could drag that into there, and now I've got this ability to play my audio player on my videos, and you can see as before my song has been pulled through to Rhythmbox, and hopefully it'll play through my Bluetooth speaker. And as you see, that worked as well. So other things to try. I closed that down by accident there. What about things like Chrome? Because obviously the default there was Firefox. I would say the searching is a little bit slower in the shop than the Linux Mint one, but you can see Chrome's appeared there. It's 949 meg. It's the Flatpak, but we can click that. Believe me, it used to be harder to download and install these things. Now, Chrome has always been quite good in the sense you could always go to the Chrome website and just download the Debian package and install it. So it's never been particularly difficult, but some packages have been. And what this saves you is actually having to go to another website to download software. And it's always safer if you're using the repositories of the distribution that you're using than going off to the internet and downloading software. So the good thing about Flatpaks is taking away the need to go looking for software and the chances of downloading something you didn't want to download and therefore installing something bad. We are using Linux, so the risk is smaller, but at the same time this really has eliminated a lot of the risk. So whilst that's installing, we can go back to the search here and we can see what else is available. You have to go back to the beginning, and you can see along here you've got top picks. So we've got Steam's here, Lutris for video game platform, and virtual machine managers, etc. You've got all these categories down here, but you can search for other things. So we search for Office. LibreOffice is already installed, and you can see it says update if it's already installed. WPS Office, only Office. But now if I click here, Chrome is now over here and I can run that, and as before with Linux Mint it works. So you can see why I'm choosing Linux Mint and Pop! OS as two Linux distributions I would recommend for new users, because most things work. I haven't used the terminal once, and that's key. If you don't want to use the terminal, you just want to use the operating system as is, you're going to use it far less with Linux Mint or Pop! OS than with a lot of other distributions. Point of note here is that if you use something like OpenSUSE, you're going to use Debian, you're going to use Fedora. If you want to use Flatpaks, chances are you're going to end up in the command line somewhere trying to enable the Flatpak repo. So if you want to take those steps away and make your life easy, then Linux Mint, Pop! OS are where you need to be. And that is the end of the video. Now it's a bit of a whirlwind tour, and I know other people have other opinions. Leave your comments in the comment section. But hopefully for new users, you'll appreciate why I'm choosing Linux Mint and Pop! OS as the two that I would choose. Now, that doesn't mean you can't try other distributions. That doesn't mean you shouldn't use other distributions. By all means, check out my other videos that are recommending and highlighting how other distributions work. But for me, if you're just getting started in Linux, you're going to save yourself a headache. It's going to stop you getting disillusioned, and you're going to enjoy your Linux experience a lot more if something works straight away than having to faff around to get it working and then it breaking, and then you're having to spend more time messing with the operating system than actually using it. And that's the end of the video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time on Everyday Linux User.